Hello everyone, so this is gonna be hopefully the final video. All what we need to do here is to build the statistics view. But before we do that, we created the updateScore module in the previous video, but we have not sent a message to activate that module. So we'll do that first. So here is the updateScore that we created. Then when the game is over, and this is the play game module, and this is our case when the number of turns reach the maximum that you want. So the number of turns reach the maximum, and that's when we call on the score to update. So we update the score by sending a message to self that says update score. This message will cause this module to activate and do what it needs to do every time the game is over. And that's what we want to happen. Every time the game is over, when you display the alert to the user, we go and update the score. Alright, so now we go and create the statistics view. So I don't need that for now. I don't need this for now. So we needed to add a view controller. So here is a view controller. Add a view controller to my storyboard. Minimize a little bit to position it. Maybe I need to get that back a little bit and put that in here. Now that I added the view controller, I need to connect it to a controller file. So bring back my files and go to my my project file and say new file. Right click on the project or go to file and say new file. And select iOS Coca Touch Objective-C class. Next, and then give this a name. So we're adding a view controller, and I'm gonna call this the stats view controller. And make sure it is a subclass of UI view controller. Next, where you save it, we'll save it over here. Actually gonna save it in that folder. And then create. So the files are added. So I go back to my view controller, go to the identity inspector, and change the class that represent the controller from the library standard one to the stats view controller. You see it over here, the stats view controller. So now you see the view controller name has updated here. Let me move these a little bit. So my next step is I want to link my game controller to the stats view controller by adding a button in here. You can, as I said earlier, you can design this any way you want. I'm just following the mockup that I have been using. So here is my view stat. Then I want to connect this to a segue that leads to the stats view. So I press the control button, drag into the next view controller, and choose an action segue that is a push segue. And here we have the stats view controller, and I can change the name here and say what this view is about. You can test that to make sure that the segue is working and the buttons are working. So here is the view controller, and the stats are coming in here and then back. Alright. Then we need to build the statistics view, and you can build it any way you want. This is how I am envisioning it. Use game statistics and have a label, and the label will have 4 lines, and the first line will say highest score, column 70%, lowest score column, whatever number with a percent, number of games, and then recent score or current score. You can choose to use 4 different labels if you want, 7, 8, whatever you want to do this. The reason I'm doing one label is to save on time, and I'm going to use the string width format to create new lines to make this look like the way you see it. I can make the game statistics title in here, or I can add a label in this case. So here is my label. So I'll position the label in the middle, give it a bigger size, go back to my attributes, and I'm going to make this label 4 lines. And you can change the label color to anything you want. Using one label means everything will be the same color. So if you want different colors for each stats, then you need to use 4 different labels. Okay. So that's our labels. Then we need to connect this label as an outlet so that we can add data to it. So here is the stats view, and click Control and drag from the label to the stats view controller header file to insert an outlet that will be labeled stats. I don't need anything else on this view controller. So now I need to go to the implementation file, read the data from the So go up here to the stats view controller.m and figure out at what event do we want to display everything. And for this simple case, when the view loads, we want all the data to appear. So we want to do the work here in the view did load. So I don't really need that one, so I can minimize it or you can delete it. But here in the view did load, that's when I need to do my work. And what is my work? Need to first get the a reference to the defaults, to the user defaults. And remember what we said before, here is what we're doing. So we're working now on the read. We're reading from the user defaults in order to display the data. So get a reference to the user defaults by sending a message to the NS user defaults saying give me the standard user defaults, and then I need to assign that to a local reference for our module, and I'm gonna call this defaults. Give it any name that is not a keyword in the language. Then I need to retrieve each of the stats variables. So I call the defaults and say give me the integer for key, and then use the keys that I had. So total games, and then assign this to a local variable. I'm gonna call it total games, just for simplicity. Then the same thing for the rest of them. So I'm just gonna write them directly, highest score, and then I will say to defaults give me the integer for key, and my key here is highest score. These has to be exactly the same keys as the ones we defined in the previous video or the previous module. So if you have to look into those, go ahead and look to make sure you have the exact spelling of the key. If you do not have the exact spelling, it will return 0. So if you do this and you get values that are 0, know that you have a spelling problem in the key, whether it is here or over there. But the key has to match at each point, and we call this recent score. Now, I don't really remember this in particular, so let me go to my file, go to the view controller.m, update score. Where did I call it? Yeah, here it is. I called it recent score, so I'm good. So now each one of those 4 variables has the data, that we created. Then construct a label message in this format that I had in the mockup. 4 lines that says what is the score followed by a percent sign. So create a string, and I'm going to call this the stats message, and then I'll say I want to construct NS string using a string with format. Now my format will be a bit complex because it will have 4 lines. So I will start with total games, the column, then I need an integer followed by a percent, and because the percent is the key to indicate in the string that expect a variable, it has a special meaning. If I want to display a percent by itself, I need to cancel the special meaning of the percent, and that's what the first percent will do. Alright, so this is the first one, and then I put my total games variable. Then I go back in the string and say I want a new line. The /n makes a new line, and then I want to display the recent score, column, percent, an integer followed by a percent sign, and come here in the variables, add a comma, and put my recent score. So now I have 2 lines. And if you want to test that, we can actually, instead of going to all the way and building all 4 of them, getting warnings here. Let's play a game. Let's have something, 1 correct and couple incorrect. And here is my score, 33%. Let's view the stats. So, I didn't set it in the label. Silly me. Created a message but didn't put the message in the label. So I can come here and say set the label to the message. I haven't completed the message yet, but I can just demonstrate what I have, and then to do this I have to synthesize the label. So label stats, and then come here and say label stats, set text to be my stats message. So view stats. So the total number of games is 1 followed by percent. I don't need the percent for the total games. Recent score is 33%, which is the most recent score that was played. So I need to take out that percent from the total game because I don't really need it there. So now let's add another line. So go back to the string of the message, add a /n to indicate a new line, and then say I want to display the highest score, column, and this is an integer followed by a percent. Then come in the variable list and say highest score. Then I want to add another line. So at the end of the highest score value, add the lowest score, column, and this will be an integer followed by a percent. Then come to the variables here and say this is a lowest score. Do I need to update the label? No, because once I update the message, the label use whatever that message is to set the text to it. So let's go and see. So let's view the stats. So now all of them are working. Now let's play a game. So let's make everything correct here. So I'm testing now. This is a test that I'm doing. So I'm testing the case when everything is correct. Let's view the stats. So I've played 2 games. Recent score is 100%, highest score is 100%, lowest score is 33%. So now let's play another game when everything is incorrect. So I am testing multiple cases to make sure that the logic that I have in the game is correct. So I tested the case of 1 answer, 2 answers, 3, and then let's view the stats. So I played 3 games. The recent score is 0, highest is 100, and the lowest score is 0%. Okay? So that concludes this project. We were able to implement a simple game. It is very simplified, but it follows all the different elements of a game, coming up with a challenge, presenting the challenge to the user, collecting feedback from the user, comparing user feedback with the expectation of the challenge, and applying a mechanism for scoring, and giving the user the option for the help and an option for statistics. This was a longer project. It's probably be our longest. Your final project will be the longest. And in the next project, project number 5, we will learn about table view controller. So we'll take a different turn to we have been using view controller in the last 4 projects, and in the next one we'll introducing a different type of view controller, and hopefully you are ready to start thinking and working with your final project. Thank you.